Dressed to the nines, Jintian stood at the entrance of the Ji family estate, her heart thudding with a mix of nerves and anticipation. If everything went according to plan, her ex-boyfriend would soon be calling her little auntie with the utmost respect. The thought alone was enough to bring a wicked gleam to her eye. Tonight was about reclaiming her dignity, and maybe a bit of revenge for good measure. It all began the morning before. Jintian crouched in the dark of the wardrobe, clutching a small cake box in one hand and the kind of mischievous grin that only came from imagining the delight on her boyfriend's face. It was his birthday, and she'd planned a surprise: finish work early, sneak into his place, and jump out of the closet at just the right moment. Classic, cheesy, but foolproof. At least, that was the plan. The sound of the front door opening set her heart racing. She held her breath, waiting for him to enter the bedroom. Any second now, she thought, clutching the door handle in anticipation. But then, instead of the delighted gasp she'd been hoping for, a soft, unmistakable giggle sliced through the quiet. A woman's giggle. Her hand froze mid-turn. Through the slats, her worst fears took shape, a tangled mess of limbs, laughter, and betrayal spilling across the sheet she'd picked out for him. The sting of humiliation burned through her, but Jintian wasn't the type to cry in the corner. If he wanted to humiliate her, fine, she'd give him a stage. With calculated calm, she reached for her phone and opened the live streaming app she knew had an audience ready for chaos. The camera lens focused, framing the room like a reality show gone wrong, and with one tap, the broadcast began. Jintian sat back, one hand holding the cake she'd so lovingly picked, the other swiping frosting onto her tongue as the viewer count skyrocketed past 100 in seconds. Drunken and disoriented, Ji Boyon, her so-called boyfriend, rubbed at his temples, mumbling her name like a hazy apology. The woman tangled in his arms only laughed, misunderstanding his groggy words. Didn't think young Master Ji liked an audience, she teased, her voice syrupy and smug. That was enough for Jintian. Setting the cake aside, she stood, smoothing her dress with a flick of her wrist. Then, with a flourish worthy of a Broadway reveal, she threw open the wardrobe doors, stepping into the light with all the poise of a queen descending to reclaim her throne. Well, that concludes the live broadcast of my ex-boyfriend's grand betrayal, Jintian announced with a smirk, her voice steady as she ended the stream with a dramatic flourish. The woman on the bed, still reeling from Jintian's sudden appearance, gawked at her and snapped, "Who the hell are you?" Ji Boyon, meanwhile, had sobered up in record time. He scrambled to pull his clothes back on, stammering out some weak attempt at an explanation. But Jintian had no interest in his excuses. Her voice cut through his fumbling like a blade. "Save it. Honestly, you're like a toad drooling over a wildflower, ugly and utterly out of your league." With that, she spun on her heel, her exit as sharp and final as her words. Behind her, the woman, still tangled in disbelief and bedsheets, turned to Ji Boyon, incredulous. "Wait, she was actually your girlfriend?" It wasn't a question born from guilt, but sheer disbelief, as if Jintian's boldness had defied the usual script for women scorned. She muttered something colorful under her breath, unable to keep her composure intact. Later, freshly showered and still trying to shake off the surreal events of the night, Jintian's phone buzzed. She answered, "Babe," finally, only to hear the unmistakable enthusiasm of her best friend on the other end. "The breakup we've all been waiting for. Meet me at the usual spot tonight, no excuses." The words came in a rush, and before Jintian could even respond, the line went dead. Jintian stared at her phone, exasperated but amused. "This woman," she muttered, shaking her head. Before she could put it down, another notification popped up. This time, it was a message from someone unexpected. She opened it and blinked at the sender's name, Ji Boyon's uncle. "I'm Jijun. I'm waiting for you downstairs at the cafe. Change and come meet me." When Jintian arrived at the cafe, she spotted Jijun seated by the window. Flashing a cheerful smile, she greeted him in a deliberately teasing tone, "Uncle Ji, what a surprise." Jijun, unamused by the unexpected upgrade in title, let out a dry laugh. "Let's skip the formalities and get straight to the point," he replied curtly. I'd like you to delete the original video, Miss Ju. Jintian slid into the seat across from him, raising an eyebrow in mock surprise. Oh? Did Ji Boyon send you to do his dirty work? You capitalists are all about leverage, right? So, tell me, what's in it for me if I delete it? Without hesitation, Jijun reached into his jacket and handed her a check. She glanced at the amount, 1 million yuan, and scoffed. 1 million? That's about 1/5 of what I'd consider fair. Jijun didn't flinch. Instead, he offered her a second option, his voice calm but calculated. Or, Miss Ju, you could choose me instead. The words hung in the air, and Jintian let out a soft laugh, her amusement sharp as she leaned forward, planting her palms firmly on the table. Rising slightly from her seat, she inched closer, her voice low and laced with mockery. Uncle Ji, what on earth makes you think I'd pick you, or your measly million? Jijun met her challenge with unwavering confidence. Perhaps Miss Ju doesn't understand the concept of playing the long game. Jintian snorted, leaning back into her chair with a smirk. The long game? Please. You're more like an orca pretending to be a shark. Settling into her seat with a casual air, she continued, her tone cutting yet amused. Besides, if Ji Boyon is anything to go by, I've learned that the Ji family doesn't exactly have the best track record when it comes to men. Jijun crossed his arms, his tone sharp yet restrained. Miss Ju, you're no longer Boyon's girlfriend, so there's no need to use the term uncle to feign familiarity. Jintian, unfazed, shot back with a playful smirk. If I remember correctly, Uncle Ji, you're 30 this year, 8 years my senior. Calling you uncle isn't exactly a stretch, now is it? Jijun chuckled lightly, the corners of his lips curving with quiet amusement. Uncle? How about Miss Ju tries brother instead? Before she could respond, Jijun abruptly pushed his chair back and stood, his movements deliberate. Jintian watched as he stepped closer, closer than she had anticipated, until mere centimeters separated them. Her eyes widened as he leaned in, his breath brushing her ear. Miss Ju, he murmured, his voice low and intimate, we have plenty of time to get to know each other. The warm breath grazing her neck sent a flush creeping up her cheeks. Later that evening, Jintian arrived late to a gathering with her friends. Her best friend handed her a drink the moment she walked in. Tian. You're so late. A penalty drink is mandatory. Taking the glass, Jintian downed it in one go, sighing as she set it on the table. I just developed the photos from last night and handed them to the team leader. That's what held me up. Duan Qingwu raised a curious brow. Are you talking about the factory dumping waste into the mountain streams? The ones you secretly photographed? Jintian froze, her fingers tightening around the glass. How do you know about that? She asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. Duan Qingwu casually unlocked her phone, opening Weibo with a swipe, and turned the screen toward Jintian. Because it's trending, of course. Jintian glanced at the screen, her eyes widening in disbelief. The headline blazed across the app. She hadn't expected her team leader to move so quickly. This story had consumed her for over half a month. Just yesterday, a tip-off had sent her running straight to the scene, dress and all, to snap the photos. Thankfully, she'd secured the exclusive shots herself. Beside her, Qingwu poked her teasingly in the arm. Qian, you really broke up with Ji Boyon, huh? Jintian's tone was laced with disdain. Caught him red-handed in bed with someone else. What was I supposed to do? Stick around for New Year's? Qingwu leaned in closer, mischief lighting up her features. You know, I've got a perfect revenge plan. Since Ji Boyon cheated, why don't you? I don't know, cheat on him with his little uncle? That'd even the score, wouldn't it? Jintian, mid-sip, promptly spit out her drink, doubling over with laughter and disbelief. You're insane, she muttered, shoving Qingwu away with mock annoyance before excusing herself to the restroom. Standing before the mirror in the bathroom, Jintian studied her reflection, Qingwu's words still echoing in her mind. Cheat on him with his little uncle to even the score. She sighed deeply, brushing the thought away as she turned to leave. But the moment she reached the door, she froze. Two figures loomed in the doorway, blocking her path. The two towering bodyguards barely gave Jintian time to react before she was ushered into a private room. Inside, a man lounged with his chin propped on one hand, his expression dark and brooding. The moment she crossed the threshold, Jintian's instincts kicked in, and she plastered on her most servile smile, despite the sharp prickle of dread crawling up her spine. "So, this is the little lady who leaked our dirty laundry," the man drawled, his tone low and cutting. He was Shi, the boss of the factory she'd exposed, a factory accused of illegal waste dumping. His reputation preceded him, and not in a way that inspired comfort. Jintian's laugh came brittle. "Why so serious? It's just a couple of photos, right?" She tried, her words laced with forced nonchalance. Her mind spun as she recalled a chilling story about another journalist, a rival company's investigator, who had dared to expose similar violations. The consequences had been brutal: threats, humiliation, and even coerced photos she'd never wish on anyone. Survival suddenly felt more pressing than defiance. Shi said nothing at first, merely sliding a cup of tea her way. Jintian hesitated, but then reached for the cup, her movements careful and deliberate. Lifting it to her lips, she feigned a sip before discreetly tipping its contents onto the carpet beneath the table. She straightened just as Shi leaned forward, his voice sharp with accusation. "The news is already out. My factory's losses are massive. What now? How do you plan to fix this?" Jintian opened her mouth to respond, but something wasn't right. A strange heat coursed through her veins, her limbs suddenly sluggish. Her gaze darted toward the ornate incense burner behind him, realization dawning too late. The burner wasn't decorative, it was the source of her growing unease. Shi's lips curled into a triumphant smirk, his gaze gleaming with cruel satisfaction. "Smart little journalist," he murmured, the mockery in his tone unmistakable. "Too bad you outsmarted yourself." Jintian's nails dug sharply into her palm as she fought to stay lucid. Her head felt like it was spinning, her pulse erratic, but sheer willpower drove her forward. She seized a moment of distraction when the men in the room let their guard down, stumbling toward the door. Each step felt like wading through quicksand, but she forced her legs to keep moving. The second she made it outside, chaos erupted behind her. "Idiots! What are you standing around for? Get her!" Shi's furious bellow chased her down the hallway as his bodyguards scrambled to obey. Jintian staggered through the corridor, her vision swimming. Panic sharpened her senses, and she noticed a fire escape door ajar ahead. Without hesitation, she bolted for it, praying her instincts wouldn't betray her. The heavy door slammed shut behind her as she ducked out of the stairwell, but the pounding footsteps behind her drew closer, echoing like a countdown to disaster. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she scanned her surroundings for any chance to hide. Desperation led her to try the handle of a nearby room. The knob twisted easily beneath her grip, and relief flooded her when the door gave way. She slipped inside and pressed herself against the back of the door, holding her breath as her pursuers stormed past. "Where is that little rat?" One voice growled, frustration thick in his tone. "You, stay here. She has to be on this floor. The rest of you, check the others." Silence followed, and Jintian allowed herself a single shaky exhale. Her body trembled with the release of adrenaline, but the strange heat that had been coursing through her earlier began to intensify. Her mind blurred at the edges, thoughts slipping away like water through her fingers. Before she could make sense of the sensation, the quiet was shattered. The bathroom door within the suite creaked open, and Jintian froze, her pulse roaring in her ears. Emerging from the shadows was none other than Jijin, the suite's occupant. Seeing Jijin, Jintian's mind flitted back to her best friend's teasing words, "If Ji-Boyon cheated, why don't you cheat on him with his little uncle to get even?" A ridiculous notion, but one that suddenly seemed to have a life of its own as Jintian's hand, trembling and fever-hot, brushed up the column of Jijin's neck. Jijin froze, staring at the woman clinging to him. "Jintian, do you even know what you're doing?" His voice was low, laced with tension. Jinqian's skin burned, her clarity slipping fast as she mumbled something incoherent, her fevered state making her look both vulnerable and impulsive. "Uncle Ji, help me," she whispered, her breath warm against his collar. Jinqian's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard, fighting for restraint. "Jinqian," he said firmly, "look at me. Do you know who I am?" With effort, Jinqian pried her eyes open, her gaze hazy but certain. "Uncle Ji," she murmured again, and the sound undid him. Before reason could intervene, he slipped an arm around her waist, his hands finally surrendering to the temptation of the curve of her back. "You started this, Zhu Jinqian," Jinqian said, his voice rough as his composure cracked. When morning light crept through the curtains, Jinqian awoke to find herself next to a man, a Jinqian. Panic flared through her, her hand darting out to check if he was even breathing. Before she could touch him, he stirred and turned to face her, his steady gaze locking on hers. Images of the night before surged through her mind, her cheeks flaming with embarrassment. Jinqian buried her face in her hands, groaning softly. "How did I let this happen?" she muttered to herself, cursing her impulsiveness and her friend's ridiculous idea. Jinqian, already dressed and observing her flustered reaction, smirked faintly. He didn't need to ask, her expression said it all. She remembered everything. Jinqian's voice cut through the awkward tension. "You remember, don't you?" Jinqian immediately shook her head, feigning ignorance. "Remember what? Surely you're not going to tell me I have to take responsibility, right?" Jinqian leaned against the doorframe, a knowing glint in his eyes as if her thoughts were written in bold across her forehead. "Then let me ask you again." Before he could say more, Jinqian's cheeks turned scarlet, and she darted into the bathroom with the speed of someone fleeing an impending disaster. "Wait! Give me a second. I can totally remember if you just give me time," she called out, voice muffled by the door. Inside the bathroom, Jinqian leaned against the sink, sighing heavily. "What am I even doing? This is Ji Boyon's uncle, for crying out loud. How does this even begin to make sense?" Her spiraling train of thought was cut short by the sound of a door closing. Alarmed, she flung the bathroom door open and scanned the empty room. Jinqian was gone. Anger flared in her chest, heat rising to her face as she muttered, "Typical Ji family. Not a single good one among them," she yelled into the void. Later that morning, Jinqian arrived at the newsroom only to be stopped by her editor. "Jinqian, you've hit the jackpot on this one. It's a big scoop, so big that they're sending someone from the department to take your statement." Jinqian's eyes lit up. The illegal labor expose she'd been working on was gaining serious traction. "Already? That's faster than I expected," she said, excitement bubbling under her words. Her enthusiasm waned slightly when a knock came at the office door. Standing there was a police officer, clipboard in hand. "Miss Zhu Jinqian? While we're not asking you to come to the station, we need you to be honest during your statement." Her nerves tingled. Jinqian nodded, trying to keep her voice steady. "Of course. You'll get nothing but the truth from me." Jinqian furrowed her brow, confusion blooming in her chest. "Wait, aren't I the one who provided the evidence in this case?" The officer flipped through a stack of papers, his tone as steady as his grip. "We've already conducted a thorough investigation at the waste disposal site. Turns out, the factory only dumped some tap water. It doesn't constitute illegal dumping." Jinqian blinked, her disbelief quickly turning to indignation. "Tap water? Are you kidding me? Who in their right mind drags 4 or 5 barrels of tap water up a mountain in the middle of the night?" Her frustration hit a wall of silence. The officer didn't bother answering. Instead, he dropped the bombshell. "Now, about the defamation charges being filed against you by the factory's management. That's why we're here, to take your statement." Before she could process the whirlwind of accusations, her phone buzzed to life. She glanced at the screen and sighed before answering. On the other end came Shi Ji's familiar, infuriating drawl. "Surprised, Miss Zhu? Bet you didn't see this coming. How about a little chat, face to face?" Jintian exhaled sharply, defeat laced in her tone. Fine. Sitting across from Shi Ji later, Jintian gritted her teeth as he delivered his ultimatum with a smile so casual it made her blood boil. Look, this whole thing? It's not without its solutions. I won't press charges. But the thing is, I'm just the manager here. If you've got complaints, take them up with my boss. He's the one calling the shots. The revelation hit Jintian like a slap in the face. Jijun. Of course, it's him. Barely keeping her composure, Jintian stormed into Jijun's company, her heels clicking like gunshots against the marble floor. By the time she reached the executive office, her frustration had reached a rolling boil. I knew it, she muttered under her breath. He's up to no good. Inside, Jijun barely acknowledged her entrance, his focus pinned to his assistant, whom he dismissed with a few quick words. Jintian sucked in a deep breath, summoning every ounce of self-control to keep her voice steady. But the rage simmering beneath the surface was hard to ignore. Jintian's practiced smile bloomed like a flower in spring, saccharine and disarming. Uncle Ji, good day, she greeted, her tone brimming with faux enthusiasm. Jijun, however, wasn't so easily charmed. His expression remained cool, unyielding. What brings you here, Miss Ju? Wasting no time, Jintian clasped her hands together in mock prayer, her lashes fluttering as she offered, could you maybe, pretty please, drop the charges? Jijun leaned closer, his voice laced with quiet amusement. Didn't you say capitalists are all about self-interest? If I drop the charges, what's in it for me? Jintian shrugged, her tone flippant. No money, no manpower. Take it or leave it. Jijun's eyes glinted, the corner of his mouth twitching in a way that sent a shiver down Jintian's spine. Manpower it is, then, he said, his voice smooth. Jintian blinked, her mind scrambling for answers. Wait, what? You're offering me myself? What exactly are your intentions with me, Uncle Ji? She stammered. Her confusion only deepened when Jijun's lips curved into a teasing smile. What if I told you I have a crush on you? Jijun asked, his voice light yet maddeningly confident. Her cheeks burned instantly, her flustered expression betraying her every thought. Seeing her reaction, Jijun chuckled, his teasing tone relentless. Such thin skin. Funny how you didn't blush earlier with all the things you were saying. Jintian cleared her throat, desperate to mask her embarrassment. Let's get back to business. What do you want, Uncle Ji? Without missing a beat, Jijun delivered the knockout blow. Marry me. The word struck her like a lightning bolt. Jintian's restraint snapped, and a string of expletives nearly escaped her lips before Jijun pinned her against the wall, his expression turning stern. No swearing, Miss Ju. Before she could retort, he pulled out a document, handing it to her with deliberate precision. Take a look. The agreement's already been drawn up by my lawyer. If there's anything else you want, now's the time to ask. Jintian took the document, flipping through it with a puzzled expression. Is this because of what happened last night? Do you want me to take responsibility for you? She waved her hand dismissively, her voice feigning nonchalance. Uncle Ji, you know us young people these days, we're pretty open-minded. Sure, last night was kind of my fault. I got carried away and caused you all that trouble. My bad. Jijun's tone chilled instantly, cutting through her act like ice. Who else have you been so open-minded with? Jintian's bravado crumbled in an instant. She plastered on a nervous smile, trying to laugh it off. Let me just take a look at this agreement, yeah? She skimmed the document, her eyes landing on a particular clause: the second party may freely use the first party's supplementary credit card. Her jaw almost dropped. Jiyun's credit card wasn't just a card, it was a golden ticket. No spending limits, VIP treatment at every conceivable venue. The kind of perk that could make anyone feel like royalty. Lowering the papers, Jintian quipped, Uncle Ji, this is way too generous. You're not looking for a wife, you're practically installing a goddess in your house to worship. Jijin, standing calmly by her side, gave her a meaningful glance. So, would you like to be that goddess? Jintian played dumb, her grin sheepish. Come on, now. I'm not one to take without giving back, you know. This feels more like a sell my soul kind of deal. Jijin didn't flinch, his response steady, deliberate. There's a reason behind it. I need someone to keep up appearances, a wife in name only. My family's been breathing down my neck about marriage, and, well, you just so happen to also be my nephew's favorite girl. You're the perfect candidate. His words hung in the air, heavy and final. Jintian bit her lip, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or make a run for it. As Jintian mulled over Jijin's proposal, fragments of conversations with Ji Boyon surfaced in her mind. He had mentioned how Jijin wasn't exactly the apple of old Master Ji's eye. Shipped off to a boarding school as soon as he joined Ji Corporation, rumors swirled that Jijin was merely a placeholder, a stand-in until Ji Boyon fully stepped into his role as the rightful heir. If that was the case, Jintian couldn't deny the temptation to play along. The thought of one-upping Ji Boyon, of stoking her own jealous fire, was almost too delicious to resist. Jijin's voice snapped her back to the moment. Miss Ju, he said, his tone smooth and measured, our partnership would be flawless. You know better than most, good journalism tends to ruffle feathers. If you're serious about your career, you'll need a strong ally. I'm offering you the biggest, sturdiest tree to lean on. She paused, weighing her options. True or not, Jijin's reasoning held water, and having someone like him in her corner was undeniably appealing. Besides, there was a small, wicked thrill in imagining Ji Boyon addressing her as Aunt Jintian. The thought made her smile despite herself. Resolute, she reached for the pen, spinning it once between her fingers before fixing him with a teasing glance. I've got one condition, no scheming against me. Deal? Jijin's lips curved into an amused smile. Deal. Tonight, you'll come with me to the Ji family home for dinner. Jintian nodded, her hesitation gone, and signed her name with a flourish. Later that afternoon, she slipped back into the newsroom, her steps quick and quiet as she ducked into the editor-in-chief's office. Senior, you wanted to see me, she asked, feigning innocence. When Jintian stepped into the room, Chu Cheng was already mid-rant, his tone sharp and indignant. Who's your senior? Hey, he snapped, his frustration evident. Jintian, ever the diplomat, darted forward, hands already at his shoulders in mock contrition. Come on, Chu Cheng, she said, her voice honeyed with apology. How was I supposed to know they'd pull something so ridiculous? Watering flowers on a mountainside in the middle of the night? And anyway, my informant has always been solid. I didn't think I'd need to double-check what was in that bucket. Chu Cheng wasn't buying it. He brushed off her excuses with the precision of someone practiced at calling her out. Don't even try it. Sloppy work is still sloppy work. Switching gears, he turned toward his desk, his demeanor all business. With a few clicks, his laptop screen glowed, casting a faint light on his stern expression. Enough of that. We've got a new lead for you, he said, motioning for her to look. This came in from an anonymous account, a video. My guess? They saw our story trending last night and decided to reach out. The chief editor wants us to investigate. You'll be infiltrating a campus for this one. I'll send you the school details and enrollment forms later. You're officially a student again. Jintian's face fell. I'm 22, Chu Cheng. This feels ridiculous, she mumbled, half in protest, half in disbelief. Chu Cheng didn't flinch. His voice was razor-sharp as he delivered his rebuttal. You should be grateful I'm not chewing you out more for that article, you know, the one that slapped a big, fat fake news label on this office. Consider this your penance, worker bee. Resigned to her fate, Jintian heaved a dramatic sigh. Fine. I'll do it. Chu Cheng wasn't done. A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth as he added, by the way, nice work getting the lawsuit dropped on your own. I wasted a trip to Tangerine City thinking I'd have to fix the mess at the wastewater plant for you. Jintian rolled her eyes but couldn't quite hide the flicker of satisfaction at his reluctant praise. Sometimes, victories were small, but they still counted. "Wow, Chu Cheng, that was generous of you," Jintian chirped, her voice syrupy as she waved him off. "But really, I'm just lucky to have a senior as brilliant as you to guide me." Caught in her exaggerated flattery, she jolted to reality, her mind snagging on a new suspicion. Could Jijin really have been that efficient? Or was his initial bravado just an empty threat to scare her into compliance? Dressed to the nines, Jintian stood at the entrance of the Ji family estate, her heart thudding with a mix of nerves and anticipation. If everything went according to plan, her ex-boyfriend would soon be calling her little auntie with the utmost respect. The thought alone was enough to bring a wicked gleam to her eye. Tonight was about reclaiming her dignity, and maybe a bit of revenge for good measure. Jijin, holding her hand firmly, spoke up, his voice steady. "It's just Boyon and my brother at home." Jintian, determined to keep up appearances, straightened her posture and solemnly vowed, "Uncle Ji, from now on, if you say east, I won't even glance Shi-ji. I'll listen to everything you say. Promise." Jijin's brow furrowed slightly, his curiosity piqued. "Where's this sudden burst of devotion coming from?" Glancing around the expansive courtyard, Jintian quipped, "Honestly, I'm just terrified you'll chop me into pieces. This place is so huge, you could bury my organs 10 meters apart and no one would ever know." Before Jijin could respond, a voice broke through the tension. "Uncle Ji." Ji Boyon's familiar tone carried from across the space, signaling his arrival. He was just about to address the mysterious auntie he'd heard about when he looked up and froze mid-sentence. "Jintian?" The shock in his voice was palpable, his expression shifting in an instant. Unfazed, Jijin exuded an air of authority, his presence commanding as he curtly instructed, "Call her by her title." Before Boyon could object, Jintian took the lead, wrapping an arm around Jijin's and beaming brightly. "Oh, little Boyon, you just need a moment to process, right? No rush. Let's head inside first." Leaving Ji Boyon to stew in his shock, Jintian strode ahead, only for Boyon to snap out of it and grab her arm, his confusion morphing into desperation. "Jintian, what's going on? Why are you with my uncle?" His words tumbled out in a rush. Jintian immediately yanked her arm free, glaring at him with a mix of annoyance and triumph. "Let go of me. You're hurting me," she snapped. Unrelenting, Ji Boyon seized her shoulders, his voice cracking as he blurted, "Jintian, I was drunk. It was a mistake, okay? You have to believe me, I only love you. Always have." She stared at him, utterly unimpressed. "Oh, great. The sun's out, the rain's gone, and now you think you're good enough for me again?" Her tone was razor-sharp, cutting through his pleading like a knife. It was then Boyon's eyes landed on the faint red marks on Jintian's neck. His face darkened, jealousy and anger flaring as he demanded, "Who did this? Tell me right now." Before she could respond, Jijin appeared beside her, slipping a protective arm around her shoulders as if to stake his claim. "I did," he said coolly, his presence a quiet but firm warning. The word seemed to detonate in Boyon's chest, and he finally lost all composure, shouting, "Jintian, do you even love me?" Caught between disbelief and pride, Jintian's answer was poised but biting. "I love your uncle," she said, each word a nail in Boyon's coffin of humiliation. The tension thickened as Jijin's commanding gaze bore down on Boyon, leaving him no choice but to bow his head, his voice trembling with reluctant obedience. "Little auntie." At that moment, old Master Ji appeared, cutting through the standoff with the effortless authority only age can bestow. "What's all this fuss about? Go wash up, it's time for dinner." Turning to Jintian, he produced a bright red envelope from his pocket and extended it to her. "Take it. Just a small token of welcome." Jintian, caught off guard, hastily tried to refuse. "Oh, no, I couldn't possibly, this is too much." But the old man simply smiled, unyielding. Ji-yin broke the silence, his voice calm but firm. "Since my elder brother gave it to you, you should accept it. When Boyon gets married in the future, we can return the favor with an even bigger one. With a chuckle, old Master Ji patted Jin's shoulder. Don't you dare use Jintian's soft heart against her. She deserves kindness, not cunning. Jin's response was swift and resolute. Why would I bully her? I treasure her too much to even think about it. Later, as they finished dinner, Jintian sat in Jin's car, her fingers unable to resist pulling the bright red envelope out once more, her fascination palpable. Jin noticed and couldn't help but laugh softly. Little moneygrubber, he teased, his tone brimming with affection. Even the driver, accustomed to Jin's composed demeanor, glanced at the rearview mirror and remarked, "This is the first time I've seen Mr. Ji smile like that." Just then, Jin turned to Jintian, his voice low but earnest. "Bring your household registration tomorrow. We're going to the Civil Affairs Bureau." Startled, Jintian didn't miss a beat before firmly declining. "That's not happening. I have plans tomorrow." Jin didn't appear upset, merely tilting his head and asking, "What plans?" Jintian, as serious as ever, declared, "I'm going to school tomorrow." Amusement flickered across his face as he countered, "School? Are you planning to redo kindergarten?" Jintian met his jest with equal seriousness. "I'm a reporter. I'm going to a school to dig up some hot news." Her expression then hardened as she suddenly remembered something, her tone sharp. "Don't forget, your schemes nearly ruined my career the last time I broke a big story." The car rolled to a stop beneath Jin's building, but Jintian shook her head resolutely. "I'm not going to your place. Take me home." Her tone was firm, but Jin didn't seem to hear her at all. 3 seconds, he said evenly, his voice carrying that unmistakable edge. Childish, Jintian shot back with a scoff, though her feet betrayed her bravado as she climbed out of the car. Feigning nonchalance, she followed him, muttering, "Fine. I know how to commit to a role. I'll stay at your place, but we need to set some ground rules first." Jin glanced at her, his expression utterly unbothered. "Don't worry. Your tiny frame holds no interest for me." Her eyes narrowed, anger sparking. "Excuse me? Do you even know what kind of figure I have?" Her indignation bloomed into a crimson flush as she huffed, quickly changing the subject. "Forget it. I have to be up early tomorrow. Let's just go inside." The next day, Jintian found herself in an entirely different scene. Donning a school uniform, she stood confidently at the front of the classroom. "Hello, everyone," she greeted, her smile bright and friendly. "I'm Jintian, and I'm excited to be your new classmate." The teacher nodded approvingly. "Jintian, please find an empty seat." Her eye scanned the room before settling on a girl in the back row. There she was, the reason for Jintian's visit. Grinning, Jintian walked over and extended a hand. "Hi, I'm your new desk mate." Jintian held out a piece of candy, but the girl merely glanced at her before lowering her head again, ignoring her. A girl in the front row twisted around, her expression half mocking as she said, "Don't bother with her, she's just a weirdo." Even so, Jintian quietly placed the candy in the girl's desk cubby before retreating. Later, Jintian sat outside a bustling mall when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, Jin. Sighing, she answered, "What do you want now?" His voice came smooth and steady through the line. "Come here." She frowned, glancing around, and sure enough, there he was, standing casually in a corner not too far away. What's he doing here? She wondered. As if reading her mind, Jin spoke up, "Just checking on my mall." His lips curled into a faint smirk before he added, "Weren't you supposed to be in class? Also, did you bring your household registration booklet?" Jintian glared at him, her tone sharp. "No, I didn't." Jin shrugged, unbothered. "Then let's swing by your apartment and grab it." "Absolutely not," she snapped, her voice rising. "I have to head back to school soon, and my homeroom teacher is terrifying." His smirk deepened. "Fine, skip the booklet. Just write me a 10,000-word self-reflection paper instead." Her frustration flared. Why should I? Jijin didn't miss a beat, reaching out to flick her forehead lightly. Because, little miss, lying is bad manners. Jintian crossed her arms, cheeks flaming with indignation. You are so insufferable. The flick to Jintian's forehead left her pouting dramatically, eyes glistening as if she might cry at any moment. Jijin, however, wasn't buying it. Cut the act, Jintian, he said, his voice laced with an easy nonchalance that made her glare all the more pronounced. Before she could retort, the sound of a camera shutter snapped from somewhere nearby. Turning, they saw the girl from the front row. She studied them both with a quizzical look before asking, Jintian, what are you even doing out here? Jintian, quick on her feet, shoved Jijin aside, muttering something about needing fresh air. But the girl's gaze darted to Jijin. And who's this? She asked, suspicion edging her tone. Jintian straightened up, adopting the air of someone entirely in control. Oh, him? That's just my uncle. She threw Jijin a warning look, don't you dare blow my cover, or else. Taking her cue, Jijin played along with an exaggerated nod of approval. Yes, yes. Our little Jintian can be quite the handful. I'm counting on you to look out for her. The girl blinked, seemingly satisfied, and promised, sure thing. Jijin turned to Jintian, his smirk unmistakable. All right then, dear niece, I'll see you later tonight. The truth, of course, was far from this charade. Jintian wasn't a student at all, she was a journalist undercover at the school, chasing a story. But between blending in and resisting the overwhelming urge to doze off in class, her facade wasn't without its cracks. Just as her hand instinctively reached for her phone, a shadow loomed behind her. Jintian. The homeroom teacher's stern voice cut through the quiet hum of the classroom like a knife. I made it very clear during lunch, no phones during lessons. Yet here you are. Jintian's head snapped up, heart hammering. I wasn't in class during lunch, she stammered, clutching at straws. And besides, I just picked it up, I swear. The homeroom teacher's face twisted into an even angrier scowl. Instead of reflecting on your mistakes, you're arguing with me. Aren't you a day student? Fine. After school, bring your parents in. Jintian let out a long sigh, slumping over her desk in defeat. Bring my parents. She couldn't even begin to fathom how to make that happen. From the row ahead, a boy turned back and placed a can of Coke on her desk, his smile an attempt at comfort. Jintian, your mom and dad can't come, huh? Before Jintian could reply, a girl from another row swiveled in her seat and snapped at Jintian's desk mate. You freak! You saw the teachers patrolling outside, couldn't you have warned Jintian? Jintian jumped in before things escalated further. Don't blame her, okay? It's all on me. I shouldn't have taken out my phone in class. The boy with the Coke grinned and gave Jintian a thumbs up. That's our Jintian, pretty and kind-hearted as ever. After school, Jintian lingered, dragging her feet in the hope the homeroom teacher might have left. But as soon as she peeked out the classroom door, she locked eyes with the teacher's death stare. Any notion of escaping dissolved instantly. I'll call right now, she blurted, scrambling for her phone. Left with no other choice, Jintian reluctantly dialed Jijin. Uncle G, she began hesitantly, her voice oozing guilt. So, I may have made a tiny mistake today, and the homeroom teacher, well, they want to see a parent. Jijin chuckled on the other end, his amusement clear. Jintian, you never fail to impress, do you? Caught under the homeroom teacher's steely gaze, Jintian hesitated, then pressed on. Uncle G, are you free right now? Like, really, really free? On the other end of the line, Jijin's voice was playful, almost teasing. And who might you be? And who might I be? Jintian gritted her teeth, resisting the urge to throw her phone across the room. Instead, she cranked up the charm, her tone syrupy sweet. Oh, come on, my dearest Uncle G. Pretty please? Just come save me this one time. I'll owe you, like, forever. Anything you want, I'll be your personal assistant, your pack mule, whatever. Just help me out. When Ji-Yin eventually arrived to play the role of guardian, he was greeted by the homeroom teacher's endless scolding. Mr. Ji, I can tell you're a busy man, but as Ju Jintian's guardian, you really need to pay more attention to her. Right now, it's just breaking rules at school, but what if someday? At that moment, the school principal appeared, cutting in smoothly. Ah, Mr. Ji. What an unexpected honor to have you here. The homeroom teacher, now under the principal's unforgiving glare, immediately changed their tune. Well, of course, Ju Jintian is an excellent student. This is merely a small wake-up call for her. Ji-Yin pinched the bridge of his nose, exhaling slowly. She's a handful. Thank you for putting up with her. The principal, all smiles now, took the opportunity to reveal their true intentions. By the way, about the school sponsorship efforts this year. Ji-Yin glanced at Jintian, who was sitting quietly but radiating hunger so powerfully she might as well have had a flashing neon sign over her head. Sighing, he cut off the principal mid-pitch. Let's discuss this on Monday at Yaja. With that, Jintian finally got her long-awaited meal and leaned back with a satisfied smile, her troubles temporarily forgotten. Uncle Ji, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to help me out, Jintian said, her tone dripping with exaggerated gratitude. If you have any requests, just let me know. Ji-Yin waved her off with casual indifference. Nothing much, just make some time to head over and register a marriage certificate with me. Jintian froze mid-thank you and blinked. Wait a second. 10 minutes ago, she'd barely finished dialing his number, and now here he was. Hold on, you were already at the school gate waiting for me, weren't you? Ji-Yin neither confirmed nor denied it, simply replying, I'll be out of town for the next couple of days. Stay out of trouble. Oh, and don't forget about that 10,000-word self-reflection essay. Jintian groaned internally, feeling like a bucket of ice water had just been dumped over her head. Right. The essay. She'd conveniently forgotten about that little detail. Later, when she recounted the whirlwind of events to Du and Qingwu, the other woman was equal parts amused and appalled. Ju Jintian, you really outdid yourself this time. I didn't know you could be so obedient. I told you to cozy up to his uncle, and you actually went ahead and did it. Jintian ducked her head, guilt radiating off her. Well, it wasn't for nothing. We signed a marriage agreement. Du and Qingwu's reaction was immediate, a not-so-gentle fist to Jintian's head. Are you out of your mind? A guy worth billions marries you after just one night, and you didn't think to question his motives? Do you have any idea what he's really after? Jintian shrugged, a sly smile tugging at her lips. Why should I care? It's not like my intentions were all that pure either. Du and Qingwu, thoroughly stumped, could only puff up in frustration like an indignant blowfish. Jintian seized the moment, looping an arm through hers with the speed of someone dodging a grenade. Enough about that. It's been forever since we've gone shopping. Let's head out. As the two strolled through the streets, their conversation inevitably circled back to Jintian's latest adventure at school. So, Qingwu began, side-eyeing her, you only know the girl's name is Li Wenying and nothing else about her? Jintian sighed, the kind that carried the weight of 1,000 thwarted attempts. She's really closed off. I have no idea how to approach her. Just then, the aroma of freshly grilled meat wafted through the air, snagging Jintian's attention like a fishing hook. Her eyes lit up as she zeroed in on the source, a humble barbecue stand. Excuse me. One order, please, she called out, practically skipping over. Before her words could fully land, a familiar voice drifted into the mix. Grandma, I brought the sauce. Jintian froze mid-step, her head snapping toward the speaker. No way. There, helping at the stand, was none other than Li Wenying. The barbecue stand's elderly owner chimed in with a gentle nudge. Wenying, it's hot out. Tie your hair back, will you? She set down Jintian's order with a warm smile. Here you go, young lady. Li Wenying turned, her gaze catching on Jintian. For a beat, the air between them hummed with unspoken questions. Jintian broke the silence with an easy smile, holding out a hair tie she'd fished from her pocket. "Here, I've got one." Li Wenying stared at the hair tie in her hand, momentarily dazed, as if this small gesture had caught her off guard. At home, Jintian's mind was spinning. After all, she'd had her fair share of strange encounters, like the uncle who not only demanded an apology letter but texted reminders after class. If she really churned out a 10,000-word essay, her hands would probably seize up in protest. Deciding to take her dilemma to a higher power, Jintian took her computer and dialed up Jijun on FaceTime. He picked up in an instant, his tone all business. "What's up?" "Uncle Ji," she began with her most ingratiating tone, practically laying the charm on with a trowel. "Can I send in my apology letter as an e-document? I swear I'll go above and beyond, make it the Mona Lisa of apologies." Jijun, magnanimous as ever, agreed with a casual, "Sure." Jintian's grin could have split her face. "You're the best, Uncle Ji. I love you." But just as the words left her mouth, an unfamiliar voice chimed in on the other end. "Mr. G, is that your niece? She's adorable. Cue the record scratch." Jintian nearly choked on air. "Wait, you have company," she hissed, scandalized. Jijun, ever composed, replied, "Just in a meeting about the research project." Jintian didn't wait for further explanation, she hung up faster than you could say damage control. Steeling herself, Jintian planted herself in front of her laptop. No time for shame, she had work to do. If the saying was true, you don't hit a smiling face, then surely compliments would smooth the way. With that in mind, she dove headfirst into the internet, searching for every possible way to flatter someone. After assembling her arsenal of sweet-talking phrases, she stretched with the satisfaction of a job well done. By the time Jintian woke up the next day, she found herself squinting at an unexpected sight. Jijun, who was supposed to be overseas, perched casually on the bay window in her room. Rubbing her eyes to confirm she wasn't hallucinating, she watched as Jijun calmly pulled out his phone, his expression entirely unbothered. Meanwhile, Jintian's own phone-related blunder came rushing back to haunt her. In her desperation to compile her list of flattering phrases, she'd accidentally included a cursed line, "May your life be as fleeting as a blooming epiphyllum." Who wrote something that vile? Mortified, Jintian's face burned hotter than a campfire. She stammered, "Uncle G, I swear I didn't write that." Jijun, ever the picture of calm authority, held up his phone, the offending phrase clearly displayed. "Oh? Not yours?" Caught red-handed, Jintian clung to his arm in shameless desperation, her tone sugary sweet. "Uncle G, I really didn't know I messed up this time. Forgive me?" Jijun heaved a sigh, the kind that said he was used to this level of chaos. "Fine. But let this be the last time. Get dressed, we're heading out." Jintian's mood did a full 180, her excitement bubbling over. "Dinner? Is it dinner?" Jian flicked her forehead with a light tap, his voice wry. "All you think about is food. Use that brain for something else once in a while." Still rubbing her forehead protectively, Jintian couldn't help but wonder, if not dinner, then what? If it's not food, what's the plan? To grab your household registration book, Jijun replied smoothly, like it was no big deal. "I've already had your school approve your leave. We're heading to the Civil Affairs Bureau." Her brain screeched to a halt. "Wait, what excuse did you even give the school?" Jijun's lips quirked into the faintest of smiles. Let's just say the principal was very accommodating. Without asking for reasons, Jiyan triumphantly led Jintian to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Nearby, a staff member glanced at the two of them with furrowed brows, her expression practically screaming disapproval. Young people these days take marriage way too lightly. Jintian could almost hear her thinking. She muttered under her breath, "Does this lady have mind-reading powers or something? How does she know we're not doing this for love?" Jiyan, unbothered as always, declared, "This is my first time getting married, so I don't exactly have experience with this." The staff member's reaction was immediate and not subtle. "Wait, you're here to get married?" Her voice practically dripped with incredulity, making Jintian wonder just how mismatched they looked to an outsider. Before Jintian could overthink it further, the woman pointed toward another line, clearly unable to hold back her advice. "Sweetheart, the line for divorces is over there. If you're here to get married, you're in the wrong queue." Mortified, Jintian scratched her head awkwardly, mumbled a quick thank you, and scurried to the correct line. Moments later, she was staring at their freshly printed marriage certificates. The little red booklet felt heavier than she'd expected. "We didn't really need to make this official, did we? Like, we could just... I don't know, part ways now?" Jijan's grip was faster than her exit plan, his voice low but firm. "Don't even think about it, Ju Jintian." While Jintian gawked at him, trying to process his tone, Jijan casually snatched both certificates with an air of finality. "Hey," she protested, jumping up in a futile attempt to snatch one back. "Why do you get to keep them both? Give me mine." "Because you'll lose it," he replied flatly, holding the certificates just out of reach. Realizing it was a lost cause, Jintian let out an exaggerated sigh and flagged down a cab. "Fine, whatever. I don't have time to argue with you, I need to get back to school." She climbed in without another glance, leaving Jijan watching her retreat with the faintest smirk. Jijan watched the retreating cab and murmured to himself, "That's the second promise I've kept for you." Later, during a break between classes, the class representative, Wen Yu, stood at the podium and announced, "At the end of this semester, after finals, our department will host a farewell party. If anyone wants to perform on stage, come see me to sign up. Oh, and Ju Jintian, Mr. Ju asked you to pick up your student ID from the academic office." Jintian turned to her seatmate, Li Wenying, and tapped her on the arm. "Can you come with me to grab my student ID?" Before Wenying could answer, a boy in the front row spun around with a teasing grin. "Sweetheart, why are you asking her? Ask me instead. Why hang out with that weirdo?" Jintian immediately waved him off with an exaggerated eye roll. "Get lost." Turning back to Wenying, she clasped her hands together in mock prayer. "Please, Wenying, I really need your help." After a long silence, Li Wenying suddenly stood and strode toward the door without a word. Jintian's face lit up as she scrambled to follow her. "You're coming with me?" "Yay!" "Wait up, don't walk so fast." Just then, Wenying paused and spoke softly, her voice cutting through Jintian's excitement. "Thank you. Everyone else calls me a freak because of my birthmark. But you remembered my name." Jintian reached out and gently brushed aside Li Wenying's thick bangs. Wenying flinched slightly, as if tempted to retreat, but held her ground. "I must look awful, right?" she mumbled. Jintian's eyes sparkled as she offered reassurance. "This little birthmark? It can definitely be removed completely. Tomorrow, I'll bring you a foundation that'll cover it so well, no one will even notice." Wenying didn't respond directly. Instead, she gestured ahead and said, "The academic office is just over there. Go pick up your student ID, I'll wait for you here." While Jintian was inside, her phone buzzed with a call from Jijan. His voice was casual but familiar. "I'll pick you up tonight. Let's head to the bamboo house for dinner. Some old friends are getting together." "The bamboo house?" Jintian echoed, her excitement bubbling over. "You mean the courtyard restaurant with the chefs who've got decades of Michelin star experience? The one with a half-year-long waiting list?" Jivan chuckled. "Yeah, that one. If you're busy, though, it's fine. You don't have to come." "Busy? No way. I'll just grab a cab after school," Jintian replied without hesitation, practically glowing with anticipation. Still giddy at the thought of her evening feast, Jintian bounded back to Wenying. "Wenying, want to grab lunch together later? Shiaziki's coming too." Wenying hesitated, her expression flickering with something fragile yet determined. After a small, almost imperceptible shiver, she nodded. "Okay. At lunch, the three of them sat together in the cafeteria. Ziki plopped a shrimp onto Jintian's plate, grinning as she said, "Jintian, you're so skinny. Eat more." Without missing a beat, Jintian passed the shrimp onto Li Wenying's plate, explaining, "I'm on a diet." Wenying didn't say a word. She just turned her head away, her reaction stirring a flicker of confusion in Jintian. "What's wrong? You don't like shrimp, Wenying?" Wenying carefully pushed the shrimp aside, battling back a surge of emotion. It felt strange, like she might actually be someone's friend for once. That evening, Jintian arrived at the bamboo house, breezing past the front desk with Jijan's name. Inside, two men spotted her and exchanged amused glances. "Hey, little sister, are you even old enough to be here? Jijan married someone still in school?" The other man quickly jumped in, waving off the teasing. "All right, quit it. Don't scare her off, or old Ji will make you pay for it when he gets back." Jintian pulled out her phone and sent Jijan a quick message, "Your friends are quite enthusiastic." Before she could even lower the phone, the teasing man piped up again, "Come on, little sister, don't sell us out. Your husband already warned us in the group chat not to mess with you." Her cheeks flamed red, and no amount of steadying breaths could keep the heat from rising to her face. After what felt like an eternity, footsteps echoed from the entrance. One of the men waved toward the door, a grin breaking across his face. "Old Ji, finally!" Jijan stepped forward, his expression softening as he glanced down at Jintian. "Hungry yet?" he asked gently, but the sight that greeted him, a Jintian whose cheeks were flushed with a telltale drunkenness, made his face instantly darken. "Did you give her alcohol?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the room. One of the men threw up his hands in protest. "No way! Your wife poured it herself. We wouldn't dare encourage her?" Over dinner, the conversation drifted into lighter territory. "Jintian," one of the men began, "you're 22, right? That must make you a senior in college?" Jintian calmly picked up a piece of pork rib, chewing thoughtfully before responding, "I was 16 when I won first place in the national math competition. Got straight into Jing University. Skipped a grade my sophomore year, so I've already finished my master's in philosophy." Her companions exchanged baffled looks, struggling to reconcile the brilliance she spoke of with the carefree way she held herself. "Why philosophy, though? With a mind like yours, you could have studied anything," one asked, curiosity laced in his tone. Jintian smiled, a faint hint of mischief in her eyes. "Well, the philosophy professor promised me a $10,000 annual scholarship if I joined the program. Otherwise, I'd probably be working at an observatory right now, surrounded by stars. Philosophy may not land you a dream job, but it certainly taught me a lot about the meaning of life." As she spoke, Jintian shifted the conversation, mentioning her outfit and inadvertently revealing a tattoo on her lower back. Jijan's eyes narrowed, and before she could react, he reached over, pulling her back down with a mix of exasperation and authority. His face was practically a thundercloud. "Jintian, what are you up to?" one of the men nearby asked, curiosity lighting his face. "What does that word mean?" Jintian laughed lightly, explaining, "It's Dutch. It means a ray of light breaking through a gloomy sky." By the time they were full and back in the car, Jijan glanced over at the peacefully sleeping Jintian, his jaw tight with frustration. "Daring to adjust your clothes in front of other men? Just wait until we're home."